Hello everyone, Jai Bhim. We have interpretation available in French. To access it, please click the globe icon at the bottom of your screen and you select French for that. Let's wait for 1 or 2 more minutes and then we start maybe. People are still joining in. Jai Bhim, Vijayji, Jai Bhim everyone. All right, let's begin. Welcome everyone on board. Jai Bhim, Oporoma, Lenthe, Salve, Uhuru. First thing, the French interpretation is available for this session. And in order to access it, please click the globe icon at the bottom of your screen. Yeah, so let's start. Global Forum of Communities Discriminated on Work and Decent would like to welcome you all for today's session. In fact, a dialogue, a conversation, which is around and about addressing caste-based hierarchies in Africa and Asia. This dialogue, or we can say again, a conversation aims to critically examine the presence of caste-based hierarchies, not only in South Asia, but Africa and of course globally. And we are here to address a critical, but often an issue which is being overlooked, the discrimination based on work and decent, which is not confined to Asia alone, but indeed it's a phenomena which has a global impact. And we'll further explore diverse manifestation of work and decent based historical and continuing discrimination. As we begin, I would request Pranjali to play the video of voices from the ground on how caste and decent based discrimination has impacted. Pranjali, can we have the video? Can we increase the volume a bit?
The Sarahule community in Koina, Garawal and Basse, the Mandinka community in North Bank region of the Gambia, the Fula and the Wolof community in the Central River region of the Gambia. These communities face discriminations in various forms. They face human rights violations on a daily basis. Discriminations such as segregations in schools, segregations in public spaces, segregations in worship centers, and even segregations in burial grounds.
Dalits suffered lots in Nepal. They face social exclusion, untouchability, economic deprivation, political exclusions, and lots of things. We have suffered from wrongful conviction, torture, and extrajudicial killing in the detention too.
Iro borasidu sale kulu ya bumo igine talib sani fokusi eringa harno kawir bagin bore ma matkan goti lamman tara baso agon Niger labora o dide yebo mono bore ko igi gare igi kar ashin dai kulki space iri dunya ba kuna da asigi bo zambor sidirgu indi ko nan kan kanise ba ni godirgu indi bor fogo di ko wona ga eringa la kalkane sino eringa ro kasura da nirgo ba kan sai igine boro ba kan woni kwara asi kasura toro karari gwa kasura ban kan woni bisa namiro si ga ba fune kutte ba ferno ni gobor fo ko woni eringa do ne kusi.
Roma people face human rights violation daily. Discrimination in education, where children are placed in segregated or inferior schools. Discrimination in housing, where families are forced into segregated settlements with a poor living condition. We can find it in employment, where opportunities are denied solely based on ethnicity.
Actualmente vivo en la ciudad de Bogotá. Palenque enfrenta muchas problemáticas que plantean los siguientes retos. Creación de una política de Estado que garantice el acceso de población palenquera en el área laboral, tanto en empresas públicas como privadas, para mejorar sus condiciones de vida y eliminar las brechas de discriminación y racismo estructural.
These systematic barriers do not just limit our opportunities, but they rob us to our basic human dignity. Yet, this challenges my community continues to fight for equality and inclusion. This is why I urge the global leaders to take action. Everybody knows that communities discriminated on work and dissent must be included in global development framework and conversation.
Thank you, Pranjali. That was indeed very powerful, and it's always good to hear voices from the ground, which will undoubtedly strengthen this important process, and of course, the youth members of the community itself. I would like to invite Ms. Beena Pallical, who will be moderating today's session. Before I hand over the floor to her, I would like to express our heartfelt gratitude to Beena for stepping in at the short notice due to an unexpected emergency. You might have seen it in the flyer also. Professor Amit from JNU was supposed to moderate, but he couldn't join us today due to some emergency, and Beena agreed to take this role. Before I hand it over to Beena, I would like to introduce Beena. Beena Pallical, a formidable Dalit women leader, is the General Secretary of National Campaign on Dalit Human Rights. And of course, a relentless advocate for policy reforms. She has dedicated her life to securing justice for Dalit community and of course other marginalized groups, including tribals also. And she has been a driving force in demanding the inclusion of Dalit women in policy formulation, ensuring their voices also shape the future. And she's presently the chair of Asia Dalit Rights Forum and co-chair of the Global Call for Action Against Poverty, that is GCAP. With a sharp focus on economic justice and gender equity, Beena has shattered barriers and by becoming the first Dalit women to address the United Nations General Assembly. And she continues to do that, champion transformative and equitable solution for the Dalits. Beena, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Naveen, and I'm sorry to disappoint a lot of you. I don't look like Amit or speak like Amit, but there's been an emergency, so he couldn't join today. So I'm just stepping in. So sorry to disappoint some of you, but here we are. I mean, the show must go on. And thank you all. Jai Bhim, Johar, Salam to everyone who has joined. I mean, it's great to have you all. I know it's the middle of the week and everybody's very busy, but thanks for joining in. A very critical conversation, like they say, critical race theory. I think this is the critical theory of communities discriminated on work and dissent. To look at the vastness of this theme across globally. Normally, we hear about caste in India or in the South Asian context or in diaspora, and we think that it's limited to caste here. But similar forms of, actually, in some countries like Gambia and other countries in Africa, they're also starting to call these systems of hierarchy as caste and caste-like structures. So you have caste-like and caste-like structures and hierarchies like caste globally across different continents. For example, I'll just give you some example. You have the Roma community in Europe. Many of them say that they have, migrated from India, but that's a different conversation that we can have. But we have the Roma situation. If you look at the situation of the Roma community, the similarities are just so stark. Like they don't have housing, they don't have access to water, there's violence on them. Very similar to what Dalits face here. In the African context, you have Osu, Oru, you have Haratin, then you have in Asia, in Japan, you have the Burakumin. So this is just few examples that I'm giving him that actually gives you how vast this is today in the world today. The Global Forum of Communities Discriminated on Work and Dissent, which is hosting this the webinar today, through its years of studies and engagement with communities, looks at the exclusion and violence that is faced across the globe, and has very specifically intervened with the Africa Commission for Human and People's Rights, and a resolution was passed by the Commission. I'm not going to go into what are those key concepts, but it's important to understand that this resolution is actually looking at the discrimination where millions of Africa continue to face discrimination. And I think through both the speakers, you will get to know that the discrimination is not colonial discrimination. And often when we talk about decolonizing or colonizing, we think of the colony, but it is within the communities, just like in India, it is within the citizens itself. How we are marginalized, so severe marginalization, by the dominant, and of course, exclusion. So exclusion for access to water, exclusion for access to land, exclusion for access to education, and I can go on. But basically, the human rights of all these communities is at stake, and it's very important for us to understand that this kind of system, and it is important to identify that these kind of systems not just exist in South Asia, but or with the caste communities, but actually it is across the globe. Now, I can go on speaking, forever and ever, and tell you more about this, but I think that you all have come here to speak to two excellent panelists who will share experiences, both of them who have worked a lot on this issue. I would like to introduce to you Queen. Queen Bisseng is a United Nations Program Specialist for Africa at the Global Forum of Communities Discriminated on Work and Dissent, and she's based in Cameroon. A dedicated researcher and advocate, she focuses on the recognition of human rights defenders and rights experts working on the rights and entitlements of CDWD. I'm using CDWD as a short form for Communities Discriminated on Work and Dissent. She leads GFoD's initiatives in Africa, actively engaging with regional mechanisms, and has been intervening at the UN forums, specifically at the High-Level Political Forum and Human Rights Council, and is a great resource for the voices of people of, from Africa. The other speaker, many of you know, is Mr. Paul Divakar Namala. He's a leading voice on caste and similar hierarchies worldwide. He's a distinguished human rights activist, policy advocate, development and an economic rights expert, dedicated to the rights of Dalits and communities discriminated on work and dissent. He is a co-founder of the National Campaign on Dalit Human Rights, but at the moment he is a convener of the Global Forum of Communities Discriminated on Work and Dissent, and he has played a pivotal role in trying here within the country, but also now trying to map these different communities, and how we can advocate collectively. And I think this is a perfect example of the power of collective action that we can take forward. So now, without much ado, I pass on the mic to Queen Bisseng, who will take it over from here. Queen, over to you.
Thank you, Beena, Jaibin, Oparoma, Lentai, Salve, Uhuru. And I will shout again, Uhuru. My name is Queen Bisseng, as Beena already mentioned. I am the GFoD African coordinator, and I am based in Cameroon. Today, I was supposed to be in Delhi for this very important dialogue, but due to some visa constraints, challenges, and also delay, this wasn't possible. But I see the excitement and the zeal we all have when it comes to our communities, when it comes to caste-based hierarchies, when it comes to key issues concerning community discriminated work and decent. We are all very engaged and committed. This is the reason why we all converge to this online webinar, though the in-person workshop was actually canceled. Yes. One other thing is that my internet provider is going through some internet maintenance nationwide. And to avoid any internet failure during this very important dialogue, I pre-registered my presentation, which I will ask Pranjali to share, and I will later come back for further discussion. Pranjali, please. Thank you. Good morning, dear participants. My name is Queen Bisseng, and I am joining from Cameroon. I am the African coordinator for the Global Forum of Communities Discriminated on Work and Decent, and I am happy to be part of this dialogue addressing the caste-based hierarchies in Africa and in Asia. During the discussions, I will be addressing the various forms of discrimination faced by communities discriminated on work and decent, including practices such as caste-based discrimination, bonded labor, and social exclusion. I will also point out the impact of this discrimination on economic, social, and cultural rights, emphasizing the systemic barriers faced by marginalized communities in accessing justice, education, and employment opportunities. Africa's rich culture and heritage is one of the most cherished assets we have, but regrettably, we have witnessed instances of discrimination both within our community and towards those who seek refuge and opportunities in different communities on our continent. It has a troubling pattern where individuals and communities are marginalized, subjected to oppression, and stripped of their humanity solely based on their lineage, descent, and occupation. I will highlight some few cases in which you will see and find commonalities and similarities with the Dalits in India. I will start by the Osu caste system in Nigeria. Amongst the Igbo people of Nigeria, it is a deeply ingrained social hierarchy passed through generations. It divides the community into the Osu, the outcasts, and the Daila, the freeborn. Osu individuals and their descendants face social exclusion, discrimination, and are often relegated to undesirable jobs. Looking at the Bela in the Tuareg community in Mali and Niger, are marginalized within the Tuareg community itself. They have historically been associated with servitude and often face discrimination with limited access to education, land, and economic opportunities. The Wahaya sexual slavery system in Niger involves the forced sexual servitude of women, particularly from marginalized communities. Women are subjected to sexual exploitation and violence, and children born from this act automatically become slaves of their masters. The Awatin slave caste system in Mauritania, which comprises freed slaves and their descendants, continue to confront deeply entrenched form of discrimination, economic exploitation, social exclusion based on their lineage. Looking at the Mandika, Fula, Wolof, Sarule, people in the Gambia and surrounding regions, they have experienced discrimination based on social hierarchies, including caste-like system affecting their access to education, employment, and social status. When you dive into a community called Garawal in the Gambia, in a particular community, there is a group called so-called nobles who underlook, undermine, discriminate, segregate another group they call slave in the same community, tagging them as slave. This group denying to accept this name or this appellation are therefore submitted to all forms of discrimination and violence from the so-called nobles, to the extent of a restriction to worship places, restriction to marketplaces, restriction to educational places, and even to open spaces. To the extent of segregation at that, because nobles, the so-called nobles, have separate graveyards from those they tag as slaves. The Borough communities in Cameroon often experience social economic discrimination due to their nomadic lifestyle. They face challenges in accessing education and healthcare and are marginalized in the country's political process. The Trokosi sexual slavery system in Ghana, Togo, and Benin involved the enslavement of women and girls as a form of atonement to the gods for perceived wrongdoings, either by them or their families. They are subjected to a forced labor and sexual exploitation within the shrines. The Swashing in the North Africa, Somalia, Libya, Morocco, Tunisia face discrimination due to their distinct ethnic and cultural background. They have been historically marginalized with limited access to education, employment, and political representation. This is just to name a few amongst the different forms of discrimination. These cases highlight the diversity of communities facing discrimination based on work and descent in Africa, and this has an effect in every aspect of their life, including the ability to secure dignified employment, access to education, healthcare, and full participation in societal activity. Some of the characteristics are occupational discrimination. People from these marginalized caste or descent-based communities in Africa often face limited access to certain occupations and are relegated to jobs that are considered unclean or undesirable. They are often excluded from skilled or high-paid professions. Economic exploitation. The discriminated communities often face economic exploitation, with their labor undervalued, and they may be paid lower wages than others for similar jobs. They often have limited or no access to land ownership, which perpetuates their economic vulnerability. Social segregation. In many instances, individuals from these marginalized communities in Africa are not allowed to enter places of worship, schools, or other public places. They are restricted from intercaste marriages or social interaction, reinforcing the social segregation. Violence and harassment. The discriminated communities mentioned face physical violence, harassment, and intimidation, often with limited legal protection or rescues. This includes sexual assault and violence used to maintain social hierarchies and control. Purity and pollution. The practices of untouchability, where individuals from marginalized castes are considered impure and are expected to remain physical distance from higher caste individuals, is common among discriminated communities in Africa. This extends to social integration and intercaste marriages. Limited education opportunities. The discriminated communities in Africa often have limited access to quality education, which further perpetuates their socio-economic disadvantages. Healthcare disparities. Access to healthcare facilities and services are limited for individuals from these communities due to neglect. Political underrepresentation. Members of these communities often have limited political representation and influence, making it challenging for them to advocate for their rights or access government services and resources. Last but not the least, denial of basic rights. In some cases, individuals from these communities are denied access to basic rights such as right to vote, own property, or access to justice. This is just a few of the characteristics among others. But in Africa, there is a victory, there is hope, there is a way out. An organ of the African Union called the African Commission on Human and People's Rights recently in November 6, 2024 adopted a resolution on the promotion and the protection of the right of communities discriminated work and descent in Africa. It is a victory, it is a milestone, but there is still a lot to do. There is a need for collective and joint action from all the parties, from all the stake actors, from all the key actors jointly to make sure that the rights of these communities, communities discriminated work and descent, are respected, promoted, recognized, and valued. I wish you all the best during the dialogue and these discussions. Thank you.
Hello, Queen? Queen, are you there?
Yes, Beena,
Yes.
I'm here.
Yeah. Just before you continue, I just like ask everyone that if you have any questions, please put it on the chat box as well. And there will be some time to ask your questions at the end when we'll open your mics and you can ask your questions. But in the meantime, please put your questions on the chat box. I know that a large group is from India. मतलब माफ़ी चाहती हूँ क्योंकि ये लास्ट मिनट ये फिजिकल मीटिंग था और लास्ट मिनट हम लोग ऑनलाइन किया है, इसलिए इंटरप्रिटेशन नहीं है, लेकिन आप लोग सब बड़े लीडर्स हैं और आपको शायद फॉलो कर सकते हैं कि क्या चर्चा हो रही है यहाँ पे। लेकिन आप भी अगर हिंदी में आपको कुछ कहना है तो चैट बॉक्स में डालिए, नहीं तो जब हम लोग फ्लोर ओपन करेंगे तब आप बात कर सकते हैं। तो क्वीन, ओवर टू यू।
Thank you, Beena. Yeah, just to add up to the video, you heard in my conclusion was that for Africa, there is victory. There is hope due to this resolution that is adopted. But I want to say that the key recommendation in the adopted resolution is the African Commission's commitment to conduct a continental study about communities discriminated work and descent, including underlining the causes, the manifestations, and the impact of discriminatory practices with active participation of representatives from the communities to thoroughly examine discriminated practices across the African region and share the findings with state parties and relevant African Union organs and agencies. GFoD and the Inclusive Project initiated this process in 2023, where we conducted field visits in Ghana, Gambia, and Cameroon. We went to the community to have an in-person experience with these communities to be aware of their concerns and the concerns facing the people, the leaders, the activists, and even the civil society organizations from these communities. During our field visits in Ghana, Cameroon, and the Gambia, we actually identified the forms of discriminations, exclusions, and concerns faced by the communities, and were able to learn from the strategies that they take by themselves to address these aspects. During our visits in these communities and in these countries, we also met some decision makers, the National Human Rights Commissions, bilateral and multilateral bodies, to find out if they actually know about the existence of these communities and to understand the strategies taken up by them and the machineries they are putting in place to address the concerns of these communities. GFoD and the Inclusive Project collaborated with the National Human Rights Commission of the Gambia. National Human Rights Commissions or institutions being state-mandate bodies, independent of government, their primary mandate is to protect and promote human rights at national levels. The Gambian Human Rights Commission conducted a study in the Gambia about the caste-based hierarchies. GFoD fully relied on this study for our research for the stakeholder report and also to build up and propose strong recommendations during the Universal Periodic Review of the Gambia in Geneva. Also, during the NGO forum, the last NGO forum ahead of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights in the Gambia in November, the senior legal officer of the Gambia Human Rights Commission participated in GFoD's panel, and this is the panel that triggered for the adoption of the actual resolution we are talking about. GFoD conducted a series of advocacy with commissioners from the African Commission, with special rapporteurs of this commission that pushed to the adoption of this resolution. In April, the NGO forum will take place ahead of the 83rd session of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights. We still plan to go there to amplify the advocacy to ensure that all the recommendations in this resolution, I mean the adopted resolution on the protection of human, on the promotion and the protection of communities discriminated on work and decent, the resolution we are talking about right now, all the recommendations in this resolution, we want to make sure that they are keenly followed up and implemented by all the stake actors. So, Beena, this is what I wanted to share about the advocacy, the joint actions, what GFoD and the Inclusivity Project has done, our engagement with the Gambian National Human Rights Commission, and also our engagement with the African Commission on Human and People's Rights that led to this resolution. Thank you.
Thanks, Queen. I think very well presented. We could open the floor now, and if anybody, there is already one question. I'm not able to, just one second. There's one question from Amit on the resolution and what has been the, I'm not able to see my chat box, so can somebody read that out? Naveen, if you can.
I'll do that.
Please. And if anybody has questions, please raise your hand and we will give you the permission to unmute.
Thanks, Beena. Queen, so Amit wants to ask that has there been a change in national government's attitude or behavior towards CDWD following the ACHPR resolution adoption?
Thank you for this question, Amit. The resolution was adopted last November, that is some 3 months ago, and we are still planning to have a strategic meeting with the commissioners to actually set the basis on how we are going to push this implementation at national levels to be internalized and be considered by all the state actors at in the African region. So this is just the beginning of the action plan we are having, and we know while we conduct this advocacy nationwide in the African regions, there is going to be a change, if not the total change, at least the beginning of some changes, if they start by including this recommendation in their national policies. Thank you.
Thank you, Naveen, and thank you, Queen. Pranjali, Rajesh Kumar has raised his hand. Can you please unmute him or allow him to unmute himself?
Okay, Jai Bhim, ma'am. Good
Jai Bhim.
afternoon, all of you. Actually, I want to know or just write a question that what type of challenges faced in India if you rescue the bonded labor and child labor, and what type they worked on there. Hello.
क्या question था आपका? What type of? If you
Yeah, what type of challenges faced in there? Actually, if they want for work them, just rescue of the bonded labor or child labor. So what type of they work and challenge faced in there?
So, Queen, what type of challenges are faced by the community, specifically communities who are bonded in either labor or employment? I guess he's asking what are the challenges and what rescue, are there been any rescue attempts, and during that, are there any challenges?
I would take the example of the Trokosi practice in Ghana, where young girls within the age of 10 to 24 are given into a shrine to pay for the perceived wrongs they committed, or family or any of their family members to pay for this atonement. They live in these shrines until the priest decide that it is their time of freedom. Then he liberates them sometimes at the age of 26. We can imagine this young girl not going to school, not having access to a societal participation, like not engaging with other people in the society. She's like in prison. Just looking at the fact that she's not educated because she's serving in this shrine. Just looking at the mentality and the belief towards this accepted by her own parents that it is a normal thing for their children, for the young girl to be in this shrine. This is one of the challenges, and there is a need for awareness, like developing and multiplying awareness, sensitization within these communities for them to actually be released mentally first about this bondage, and also pushing for some policies in countries for these type of practices to actually be, let me say, punished. This could be the way out. But the major challenge doing this bonded labor for these young girls is the fact that they are dehumanized, they are submitted to sexual assault, and they don't have access to education. Thank you.
Thanks, Queen. There's another question. What can other countries learn from CDWD activists from the Gambia, given how well they have highlighted their conditions? Have you got the question?
Yeah, somehow. I think
Yeah.
there is a need for a synergy. Individually, we can't do anything, but if civil societies come together in the same country, they are going to push for some great actions. There is also the need within the community to have some very committed and engaged activists. The case for the Gambia, we have a young activist, Ali Kamara, I don't know if it's in here, that is doing a great work. Why the so-called nobles were actually marginalizing, persecuting, and violating their community, because Ali is from this community, obliging them to accept that they are slaves. Ali and a group of young activists decided to say no about this. We are all from the same community. We are all human beings. We are from this village. You can't be dominating us and calling us slaves. We are saying a no to this. We are saying a stop to this. And they came up with a movement called Gambana movement, which is a social movement that is fighting against all this. Why do we denying access to schools? Why do we denying access to education? Why do we denying access to marketplaces and even to open spaces? They decided to build their own schools. They decided to build their own worship places. They decided to develop their own communities to say no to the so-called nobles. So working together in the community to fight back at this, and also civil societies in the same country coming up together to have strategies and action is a good practice. And the most important, collaborating with the National Human Rights Institution of this country, because they are known to be impartial. Thank you.
Thank you, Queen. Anybody else who'd like to ask a question? We also have time later, so we can move to the next session and then come back, I think. Yeah.
One question.
Yes, please, Paul.
Does these systems in Africa have religious connotations? Is it in any particular religion?
In Africa, I don't think it's linked to any religion, except from some particular cases with the Fula and the Bororo, who are really attached to some religious practices where they link this to the early marriages of the young girls, the not accessibility of the young girls to school, which they usually link to religion, saying in their religion, girls need to get married early. They don't need to go to school because they are supposed to be wives and ladies at home. but generally it is not linked to religion. But to a certain point, we came to realize that religious authorities and even traditional has a very great influence, and that we can rely on them as support to put an end to these practices if they are well educated and also sensitized. Thank you.
Thanks, Queen. There's another question from Sheikh Siddharthi. He's asked it in French, but I'm interpreting that in English. What monitoring and evaluation strategies will need to be developed at the national and regional level for the implementation of the historic resolution adopted at the Banjul 2024 NGO Forum?
Siddharthi, permets-moi de te répondre en français si c'est possible. Je ne sais pas si on va les autres vont aller à la case d'interprétation, c'est pour ta compréhension. Donc, du coup, la résolution a été adoptée en novembre, comme je le disais tantôt, et nous avons encore un plan d'action que nous essayons de mettre en place pour pouvoir voir à chaque étape afin de rendre possible et interne cette résolution. Et déjà, pour les organisations de la société civile, nous savons que chaque pays a un plan d'action national. Pendant que ce plan d'action est en train d'être adopté, il est important pour la société civile de s'assurer que ces éléments sont intégrés dans le plan d'action national et aussi dans les politiques nationaux, mais le plus important, voir et s'assurer que nos États au niveau national intègrent cette résolution et l'appliquent, bien que nous savons que l'application est souvent très difficile, mais nous devons pousser en tant que société civile. Merci, Siddharthi.
Thank you. Sorry, people, there is English to French and French to English interpretation. I think, Queen, you should just stick to English because there is people who are listening to English will continue in the same.
Oh, yeah. Sorry for that. Sorry.
Okay. There's a question from Grijesh. She's asking to what extent the CDWD communities are able to access the climate change mitigation and adaptation measures available. Is there any exclusive system there to address the issues of CDWD relating to climate change? If not, what are the major strategies CSOs adopt to address this issue? On climate change, any?
Climate change more and more is becoming a very key and important and even a devastating issue when it comes to our communities, looking at the areas where they live, especially in Africa. If I should take the example of the Baka-Bagalis in Cameroon, who live within the forest, and the climate change is a very negative or a devastating problem for them. All we have to do as civil society, because these communities sometimes don't even know what they can do for themselves. As civil society organizations working for these communities, we really need to integrate and make sure that we take the actions within the national plan of the country, protecting these communities with the issue of climate change, so that at least they can live in better conditions. I don't think I have answered this clearly, but I think when Paul comes, he will better do.
Thank you, Queen. I think we can move on to the next session. There is one more question from Father Loy, saying, since you say that such CDWD discrimination is found in different countries in Africa, has there been any influence traditionally and historically among these countries in the origin of this discrimination? Should we come back, Queen?
Yeah.
You can also take it at the end. That's also
yes, I'll do.
Okay, Queen. Thank you. So thanks a lot. I think that was really informative for many people here who have discrimination in Africa is a new thing which is very similar to what we are facing here in this region as well. So now, before I hand over the time to Paul, I'd like to request Pranjali if there's a video that we would like to show you that has been done by the Global Forum of Communities Discriminated on Work and Dissent, just bringing in the whole global perspective and very well documented. Pranjali, over to you.
The world is home to over 270 million people of communities discriminated on work and dissent. Discrimination based on work and dissent, DWD, is the UN terminology for systemic discrimination like slavery systems, including caste-based hierarchical systems in different parts of the world. This type of discrimination is pre- and post-colonialism and is rooted in the idea of purity and pollution. It manifests in practices such as casteism, untouchability, slavery, and anti-gypsyism. Discrimination based on work and dissent is a unique form of inequality, where individuals are targeted not based on their appearance, but on their ancestral heritage and profession. Unlike racism, which is about hating people because of their skin color and looks, discrimination based on work and dissent happens among people who are alike in some ways. These communities face a range of discriminatory practices, including restrictions on socio-economic, civil, political, and cultural rights. They are also subjected to notions of purity and pollution and are excluded from civic amenities such as education, health services, urban infrastructure, and access to justice. The discrimination faced by these communities often leads to violence, including assault, murder, rape, and false cases, especially when they resist discrimination and assert their rights and entitlements, be it Roma in Europe, Quilombolas in Latin America, Dalits and Burakuman in Asia, or Heritin in Africa. The members of CDWD are often subjected to violence when they demand their rights and entitlements. Women, children, and members of the LGBTQ community of CDWD are most vulnerable. However, these communities are fighting back and demanding their rights, including access to education, fair representation in the government institutions, the end of slavery and discrimination, and inclusion in policy making and legal systems. They also demand access to financial resources, health services, and the right to own land and access to political participation and power. Let us stand in solidarity with these communities and work towards a world where everyone is treated with dignity and respect, equality and justice, regardless of their work and dissent.
Thank you, Pranjali. Over to you, Paul.
Thank you very much, Beena. Friends, greetings from the Global Forum of Communities Discriminated on Work and Dissent. It's a very long name. Someday, I think we will have a more effective name, which we will call these systems together. And thank you, Queen, for very succinctly, in a short time, you have brought out the hierarchies similar to caste in Africa, all over Africa, several. Earlier, we thought it would be only in few countries, mostly western part of Africa, most the French-speaking, Mali, Mauritania, Niger, Senegal, Gambia. Gambia is English-speaking, but now we realize it's very much in Nigeria. It's very much also in Ethiopia, in Somalia. So it's not only in West, but East, North, in Sudan, and also in other places in the southern part of Africa. And this is the same experience that we have in Asia. In my own case, initially, when I started to engage in this form of caste-based discrimination, first, it's a very hidden aspect if you're from different communities. Like I'm born into a Christian tradition, and there it is very much hidden. It's there, but it's very much hidden, and these systems which are supposedly everywhere. I thought they were mostly in my district, that was Chittur district. Then you find that this is not here, but also in several areas. I remember one of the first times that the public hearing was held in Bangalore. I thought, oh my goodness, it's very much there. Politically, of course, because of the work of our leader, icon, Dr. Baba Sahib Ambedkar, this is very much, across the whole country. But the kind of violations, they used to say, oh no, it's a system of very old ages. Gandhi has come, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi has come and erased this system, annihilated the system. Now it doesn't exist, or it exists, but maybe in some remote areas, maybe in Bihar, maybe in Andhra Pradesh. But then you realize this systems is so pervasive. It exists almost in every district and in every taluk in the southernmost tip, in Tamil Nadu and Kerala, of course, but also in Kashmir and Jammu and several other places. We used to think that in other places like in West Bengal, which is on the eastern part of thing, it doesn't exist. But there, it is so hidden, whether it's a left regime, whether it's the right regime, whether it is the traditional Hindu villages or Hindu religion, where it is mostly among them, but also in Muslim areas, in Christians, in Buddhists. This system of caste is very clear. And then we found later that it's not only in India. Of course, it has to be, because we all inherited the same cultural and sociological practices here in South Asia. So it is also very much present in Nepal, very much in Bangladesh, in Sri Lanka, and in Pakistan. Bangladesh and Pakistan feel, oh, it's only in among the Hindus it's practiced. But we know even among Muslims and in those cultures, it's very much practiced. And Nepal, probably after India, is the one country which has had these systems and beginning to have, after they have adopted a constitution, after the rule of the kingdom, the constitution, very clearly they have put in clauses which prohibits practice of untouchability and certain measures to address. But of course, now we see India is progressive in its constitutions. And of course, it has to be, because it has been chaired, the constitution has been chaired by Baba Sahib Ambedkar, and very clearly has put in measures to address these systems of untouchability and also provide development and other means to ensure that the gap between the scheduled castes or scheduled tribes, of course, but scheduled castes and the others are also reduced. But unfortunately, these systems, which are even pervasive in Bangladesh, Nepal, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka, have not clearly got these systems which address the caste-based discrimination. So I think Nepal is the one, after the constitutional provisions have also brought in a Dalit commission, is now bringing in to look at allocations specifically to address this. In Bangladesh, they've begun to address this. They don't have an untouchability prohibition act as yet. There are attempts to address that, attempts to bring anti-discrimination, which also includes this caste-based discrimination. In Pakistan, I think still there are these practices which are very pervasive, but have not been brought out. And there also, mostly in the Tharparkar region, which is bordering, Rajasthan and those areas where a dominant Hindu religious communities are living. There, these systems are being identified, and systems such as bonded labor are being prohibited. But the broad aspect of untouchability within the majority religion there, which is Islam, is not being addressed. And the same situation you find in Sri Lanka. In Sri Lanka, they are unwilling to name it as Dalits or even scheduled castes because that they are very particular in a very different system, because you have minority community which is Tamil, and in the other areas which you have, the majority is Sinhala communities, and they also have, you are very well aware of the conflict. So in the minority areas, where which was at that time called, Tamil Elam, that Tamil nation, of course now that has been given up with very clear, multi-religious and other practices that have happened, multi-linguistic adaptation. So there, this is very much highlighted only in the Tamil population. And there also they use it called a work related, they call themselves as plantation workers. They are still not willing to look at it as a intergenerational descent based discrimination. I think those efforts are there, where they are beginning to be identified as also communities discriminated based on work and descent. In the Sinhala communities, also you have these systems, but those have not been very clearly and distinctly brought out. So even in Asia, even though in South Asia especially, even though it is very pervasive, each country is handling it differently. And despite the practice, despite the several aspects of research, fundamental research that has gone on, a lot of discussions at the several international bodies like UN have taken place, still a very clear systems which prohibit these caste-like structures, which are causing fundamental human rights violations, have not been initiated as yet. Uh, One of the things that we see and which we just heard, this concept of caste hierarchy, which initially is thought to be only in Asia, is now very recognized across South Asia. But also, I think we are aware that it is very clearly there in the Japanese society. In the Japanese society, these communities are called burakumin, and they have engaged for over at least 60 to 70 years back. They have been engaging with the Dalits in India, and they have brought this kind of what are the practices that they have taken up in addressing these systems of caste-like hierarchy. There, the private sector has taken more an initiative. Instead of bringing in human rights measures, they have brought in development measures. So which means they have set aside certain amount to ensure skills and training. They ensure that there are entrepreneurial measures among the Burakumin community, but the government has not strictly prohibited. And also one very distinction between the Japanese within Asia and the caste systems here, and especially the Dalits, the Burakumin and the Dalits here, the Burakumin feel that they need to overcome this by ignoring that they are from this specific community or specific practice of systems of untouchability. There also it is purity pollution, very clear. There also they are forced into menial tasks, menial jobs like scavenging, like butchery, and several other forms, anything to do with blood and leather work. Also, it's the same. But they feel that the Burakumin community generally feel, and this is a thing which we'll see how this is distinct, is that they take a flight, which means they would not uh, they would not accept themselves as specific from this community. So here you would see there is a Dalit assertion. People would like to identify themselves more and more, which is very different from the way it was maybe say about 60, 70 years ago, even here. Now you see a lot more from the Dalit community asserting their identity and saying, so what if I'm a Dalit? I need equal rights. I need a recognition. I need a not just basic dignity that is there to all the citizens or the people in this nation. So there are very clear measures, including protection from these forms, and then also later the Prevention of Atrocities Act. So these are the several forms of measures that have been adopted by different countries. And similarly is also in Europe. In Europe, as has been mentioned, you have Roma community. Now, Roma community, like Dalits, is one common identity politically they have adopted. Otherwise, they're called gypsies, travelers, Sinti. In some places, they're also named as Manush. I think it has Sanskrit link to that name, and several names. Just like how we have Mahar, Mang, Mala, Madiga, and Paraya, Pallar, several of these names. You have also their several names, but later they have adopted a common political name, which is Roma. Roma gives a name which has, even in its significance, it is a very signifies dignity. So they adopted this name Roma, and they've adopted a symbol. Very, very interesting. They adopted symbol of the Ashoka wheel. The symbol of justice is very, very interesting to see that they have adopted. And of course, they link it to India and Asia, their descendants. So there, Roma also have asserted their identity, because they too face several forms of discrimination, several forms of violence when they assert their rights, but continue to be pushed into forms of slavery. Not only forms of slavery, their development indicators are shocking. If you look at, if you see, I wish we had time to look at these pictures from different countries, wherever they are. They may be in the heart of Europe. They may be in the cities, but you would see that they are ghettoized into very into very inhabitable situations with no access to water. Imagine in Europe, with the temperatures so low, they don't have electricity sometimes. They don't have access to water. It's very shocking to see in Europe, among the Roma community, a bore well. I mean, this is crazy. You have you have all the resources, and Europe, in one sense, gives so much of aid to the other countries, but in their own nations, as far as Roma is concerned, they allow them only a bore pump to access water. And the same thing is also, you see, in Latin America. You have communities, I mean, so far we've had engagement with two communities, one in Brazil and another in Colombia. Colombia is a Spanish-speaking country, as you know, and they have communities called Palenque. They are also African descent, but they are pride themselves that they have liberated themselves from the clutches of slavery, and they are free people, and they name themselves as Palenque, and they continuously, even now, face discrimination, which is based on descent, and they are forced into these occupations. Similarly, in Brazil, you have a community named Quilombola. Quilombola communities are also like the Palenque communities in Colombia, where they're very organized. They have councils. They push for legislations in the country. They till recently they were not even identified in the census, but they have started pushing for their community to be named in the census, so that you can at least have data on where they are, who they are, and where they live, and therefore at least the whole rights as well as development can be accessed by them. So these communities worldwide facing discrimination for lack of I mean, UN calls it discrimination based on work and descent. Um, as we know, they call by different names, and also forced into several forms of occupations or work. Traditional slavery, modern slavery, the forms of unclean, so-called unclean occupations. Actually, they are the cleanest occupations. If you, what do you say to people who are actually making sure the whole community is kept clean, but they are known as unclean occupations? That's a different dialogue altogether. So the basis is purity and pollution, and they are subjected to forms of segregation, so they don't live together. And another thing that we'll have to highlight here is, you can say, why do you want to have this as a distinct form? Why can't we call it racism? The reason why it is not racism is one where the whole group is subjected to a form of discrimination. So if you have so-called African descent or blacks and the northern as whites, the whole of the black population is subjected to forms of discrimination. But here, in the same race, you have practices of discrimination. They speak the same language, they're from the same culture. In most of the times, they practice the same religion, and they have the same features and skin color. So within this same race, within the same culture, you have this practice, which is caste, or to ensure that we are inclusive of all these forms, it is a discrimination by work and descent. So others can call, okay, race may be, but why can't we use the other forms that are other policies that are already existing in place for the indigenous? Actually, that's a very good point, because for a long time, even when Dalits from specifically India have been advocating for their rights at the UN, they were clubbed together with the indigenous. But the indigenous and the Dalits have had several discussions, and the indigenous said, hey, we respect you and we'd like to work with you, but basically our demand is not against discrimination. He is not against the kind of atrocities. For us, we have been colonized by the northern countries. We have land. We have our own kingdoms, even when we had, but we have been completely displaced. So our main focus is on ensuring that we reclaim our land and we reclaim the resources that have been taken away because of colonial forms. So then it is very clear that the caste systems, those who are affected by discrimination by work and descent, cannot have only those. Even here, we have been displaced many times, especially in Asia. Dalits have been displaced from their natural resources. But for a long time, for centuries, this practice of untouchability or this practice of casteism has continuously excluded us to the extent that our resources have not been the cause of separating from us because of colonial, but because of the caste systems within our own country. And therefore, we cannot engage with the mechanisms that have been put in place to address the indigenous people and their concerns. So this key characteristics, again, wants to say, we have to say untouchability, segregation in living, segregation in housing, endogamy, we can't practice, we can't marry, and also all sorts of prohibitions, especially interdining and lack of social mobility. And whenever you assert your rights, just to ensure that you put them in place, there is a kind of violence, backlash. Then the other forms of slavery, both traditional and modern forms of slavery, have been unleashed against these communities. So these, therefore, we face significant violations of civil, political, economic, social, cultural rights, and therefore this very much needs a special treatment in the international arena. At this present time, UN, whichever is the way you look at it, UN is the only body that is there. Beena, how much more time do I have? Have I finished or do I have some more?
No, I think you should start wrapping up. Maybe another 2 minutes, yeah.
Yeah. So what we have been doing, what were the several actors who have been taking this up, have launched 2-3 measures. One, initially, because this was more pervasive in South Asia or probably India, the Dalits in India started approaching the UN, especially at the Human Rights Council, saying this system needs to be addressed. And that happened in the pre and during World Conference Against Racism. So the preparatory meetings before the World Conference Against Racism were taking place in 2001. And there several attempts have been made. In the World Conference Against Racism, there was a resistance by the countries, India being one of them, primarily saying we have laws and we have very much constitutional provisions, so we don't need to address this at the UN. We will take care of it in our national, through the national laws. In one sense, they are right that national laws are the ones who are most powerful and effective in addressing these. But however, if the national laws are not being implemented well, if the national laws are only addressing certain aspects, like for example, we have in India prevention of atrocities, which mostly looks at prevention of violence and also some forms of discrimination that exist. But the pervasive discrimination that exists in the private sector, in the wider society, in renting of houses, in workplaces, in recruitment, in the whole supply chain, they have not been recognized in this country, in India, even after decades of this being constituted with a provision, as well as the laws are still not mature enough to address these systems in its totality. But then the World Conference Against Racism, because it was denied, the Committee for Elimination of Racial Discrimination, which is a UN body which is out of the Convention for Elimination of Racial Discrimination, the committee, which is the monitoring body, came with General Recommendation 29 after the World Conference Against Racism, said that this is a system which needs to be addressed, and they passed what is called General Recommendation 29. General Recommendation 29, first of all, says wherever this is. And I think that's a very first instance where not just in South Asia, but across the world, committee identified the several forms that are there and said that we need to ensure that these forms need to be addressed, not only in a very public area, but in all forms, wherever it happens, it needs to be addressed. And then they said in this whole
Paul, you need to
arena,
start, Paul.
it needs to be, yes, it needs to be done. Then after that, even when it is not sufficient, two special rapporteurs were appointed, and principles and guidelines for addressing caste and discrimination based on descent has been come in 2008. But the reason for this linkage is, while this happens in one corner, the communities in several of these continents, like in Europe, like in Africa, which Queen has mentioned, and also in Latin America, felt that we need to come together. We need to begin to pressure at the regional level, at our country level, to have systems, because it's a common thing that is happening. Imagine a system where in India also, several of these communities are only taking this up individually and not as a national phenomenon. I think Baba Sahib did a great feat in saying that we need to unite together, at least at the national level, to see that these need to be addressed. So now I think after Queen and several actors and leaders who are here, some of them, I think Ephraim is here, Siddharthi here, and several others, and also Simona and several others in Europe, we have come together and said that we need a policy, a declaration at the global level to address this discrimination. And we want to call it Discrimination Declaration for the Rights of the Communities Discriminated on Work and Descent. And I think this is a effort which we need to do, and we hope that one day soon, because already several group of countries have come in to support this, and we hope India will also support this, because India probably is the only country which has the system of this expansive laws which can benefit the entire wherever this kind of system takes place. And we hope that, of course, implementation is still a challenge, but we need a policy which makes sure that this system anywhere in the world will be addressed. Thank you very much. Sorry for taking a few more minutes more. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Paul. Yes, Naveen?
Yeah, I just have a question. Maybe I'll come later.
Wait. Yeah, just wait. So thanks, Paul and Queen. I think that was really good. I'd like to open the floor, and people who have questions, please put it on the chat box. जो इंडिया से है, प्लीज अगर कोई सवाल है आपको पूछना है तो आप हिंदी में भी लिख सकते हैं और हम लोग ट्रांसलेट करके पूछ सकते हैं दोनों क्वीन को और पॉल को। कोई सवाल है तो ये काफ़ी एक पॉलिसी है जो ग्लोबल लेवल पे, जो अंतर्राष्ट्रीय स्तर पे एक डिमांड, एक मांग रखी है कि जैसे हमें यहाँ पे पॉलिसीज है वैसे ही अंतर्राष्ट्रीय स्तर पे एक ग्लोबल रेजोल्यूशन या कन्वेंशन, जो भी बोले आखिर में क्या कैसे उस कन्वेंशन या पॉलिसी को कैसे क्या नाम देंगे वो पता नहीं, लेकिन उस पॉलिसी जहाँ पे सारे जो कम्युनिटीज है जैसे दलित अंतर्राष्ट्रीय स्तर पे कैसे उनको साथ में लेकर एक बड़ा सा कन्वेंशन की मांग रखी है यूएन के सामने। तो उसी पर चर्चा है, उसी को हमें आप तक और हमारे जो समुदाय है जमीनी स्तर पर उन तक पहुंचाना है कि ये हमारे मांग है अंतर्राष्ट्रीय स्तर पर। तो नवीन, प्लीज गो अहेड।
Thank you, Beena. So, I mean, Paul, this would have been, this indeed is a very long journey. It would not have been very easy, but also would like to know more about other community members and also partners who have extensively supported and ensured that we have a strong global movement.
Can I take all the questions together, or would you
Yes,
prefer?
yes, please wait, yeah. There is another question from Aloy. Despite their proclaimed advancement and even the UDHR declaration, why there are two questions. So what? Yeah. Why have the European countries been unable to integrate the Romas into their society for equal sharing of resources and power? And then, since you just say that CDWD discrimination is found in different countries in Africa, has there been any influence traditionally? No, okay, that has already been there. I think Queen has responded to it. और किसी को कुछ पूछना है? Okay, Paul, you can respond and then we can wait for other questions.
Yeah, thank you. So it would not have been possible without linking up and connecting with those struggles and those efforts that are already being taken up in several of these countries. That has to be done. This is not something that we have started or we have taken up. We only we only linked it together. So that made a basic difference. So there are efforts at the regional level. So you have a group called European Roma Grassroots Organization Network, which works in around 21 or 18 or 21 countries, and they in Europe have been linking up with several of the communities in several countries, both in the Eastern Europe as well as in the Western Europe. And they are already highlighting these in the European level. Then in Brazil, there is an organization called CONAC, Confederation of Quilombola Movements in Brazil. You know, that's one. Then in Palenque, also in Colombia, there is a movement which is not as emerged, but they are bringing. So it was an opportunity to link with them. And in Africa, in several countries, in Mali, in Mauritania. Mauritania is a major movement. Actually, there is a group which is called IRA, who have been fighting for the rights of those people who've been pushed into slavery. In Nigeria, I think Ephraim was also here. There have been some studies. In Cameroon, it's Queen already. In Mali, there is a huge network called TIMED. So those are the basic bodies who have been waging their challenges to the systems of caste or slavery in several of these countries. And in Asia, of course, Asia Dalit Rights Forum, which linked Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka, and India together. So it was possible only because that these are already existing, and we have been meeting in the UN fora, and we felt that, hey, we are looking at it the same issue but from different country locations. Why don't we commonly pass a resolution, have a resolution towards a declaration? We will also need to fight it at the national level and at the regional level, and that's the reason why all these Sheikh Shidati, Ephraim, and several of friends along with Queen have pushed for this at the Africa regional level, Africa Commission on Human and People's Rights. So that's the scenario background on which the global forum is actually banking on their support.
There's another question. What is the most important root cause of caste discrimination in Asia? It is religious, cultural, economic, or political power share. In addition to that, I would like to add, would like to take the, as chair, I'd like to ask one question. That a lot of people are asking this question, and maybe they're also thinking with it now, that how would a declaration at the global level, at the UN, really make a difference in our lives here in country? How is that going to help us here? So if you can elaborate a little bit on that, so that we do have clarity that we are how that is going to impact our lives here.
Yeah, thank you. Before that, I'll just also respond to Aloysius Iridium's question. Despite their much acclaimed advancement and even the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, why have the European countries been unable to integrate Romas into their society for equal sharing of resources and power? I think there is a basic nature, human nature, wherever they are. However, and we see Europeans as the epitome of rights, and then they have a rule of law, and they have one of the best constitutions, like Scandinavian countries, or no. But however, the systems still continue. Why? Not only that, even in the US is supposed to, of course, now US has become like any other country which has authoritarianism, but still, but so this issue of caste-like structures basically springs from the whole aspect of domination and power. And you would like to have free labor, you would like to have people at their beck and call, by one, treating them as lesser human beings, and then pushing them into forms of labor or forms of occupations which do not give them dignity. Otherwise, why will they do this to Roma communities? And their vulnerability, you make them so vulnerable, they are not able to fight as equals. So therefore, you can perpetuate this. So, of course, and this has been sanctioned by religion. And I don't think only one religion has a hold on this. All Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, and of course, Hinduism. So these systems are very much instituted, and they are completely justified and even sanctioned by these systems of thought, whether it's religious or cultural. Now, your question, what you say, is very much what I have been also encountering. First, they are saying you are diluting the struggle by taking, Dalit struggle is so powerful. Now you are saying CDWD, this actually dilutes the system, number one. Then the other group is asking the question that you are asking, which is, yes, you are spending so much resources and all that in some UN, which is not at all effective. And even if the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which is supposed to be a very powerful, instrument at the national, the countries don't really respect them. And therefore, what is the real use? Yes, that's a question we face, and we are also asking. If you're only focusing on that, then it is not at all useful, and I think we should stop using this. But just our own practice, if you see, after the interventions through through several bodies like the Human Rights Council has appointed two special rapporteurs, and they have got this principles and guidelines, right? So they built a legitimacy, and this legitimacy very seldom can be denied or rejected by the state bodies, right? CERD, Committee for Elimination of Racial Discrimination, has put in another general recommendation is an instrument which a convention has, which is equal to what we call as a judgment or something. So that particular Committee for Elimination of Racial Discrimination has given the General Recommendation 29, which clearly says these communities must first be identified. Each country should build in policies. So there is several more. And after 2018, the Global Forum started intervening at the General Assembly in several bodies. One, the Commission on Status of Women, the High Level Political Forum, which is the monitoring body for SDGs, and also the whole financial financing for development, FFD. These are the three key bodies in the thing. Apart from, there's another commission for social development. They are also raising these questions because of the intervention of Queen, of several other people, Simona, from different states, and you all are bringing up certain. They are not resolutions, but they are clear supporting statements by member states. Now, these give a platform of legitimacy for countries. If there is a pressure from below, from the communities, they are going to mobilize, saying that, hey, we are not the only ones who are asking. The Committee for Elimination of Racial Discrimination, the Human Rights Council, the UN General Body, they are all raising these questions. So therefore, it is necessary for us to have at least a framework, a law, or an amendment to the Constitution, which will bring certain pressure for the community to have a better access to freedoms and also development concerns. And one that you see is also Nepal. Nepal brought in these, of course, primarily because of the movement of the people, but it has certain policies that have been there. So therefore, these if they are not linked to the community's actions and community struggles and community's demand for equity, demand for rights, just working on the UN measures is definitely a waste, and it is not at all worth it. Then lastly, I don't think this dilutes the issue of Dalits. Dalits have a history of struggle. Now, this history of struggle, I will just ask this to all of us. If Baba Sahib Ambedkar has limited his struggle only to the Mahars, I think initially it was called as Mahar Satyagraha or something, it was primarily on one caste. And he, in his foresight, has seen that it is not just Mahars. You have this system pervasive across the whole of the country, and also not on the country. He even linked in, of course, now what is now Pakistan and several other countries, and even South Africa. Now, that is the way in which we express solidarity. So wherever it is, we have also a responsibility to express solidarity and to address this unequivocally wherever this system exists. Otherwise, just clinging as only I'm a Dalit, then it's also a way of casteism, that you want only the benefits to you and not be spread across to this wherever it exists.
Thank you, Paul. We're running out of time. I think we need to close now. Just in my, I'd like to really thank Queen and Paul for that fantastic dialogue that we've had, and also bringing some clarity into how we want to move forward, or how we're moving forward. Just in addition to what they have said, I'd also like to say that there are many global how do you say networks or collectives, or global countries blocks coming together. There's the BRICS, there's a G20, there's a C20. I mean, C20 civil society, but there are several blocks that are coming up. All these blocks are mostly held by countries, but they have no there is no mandate globally that they should do something. Whereas UN has a mandate, because it is not a private economic it is not privately held, but countries are signatory to the United Nations. So anything that comes out of UN is mandatory by the UN convention, that countries who sign on to it, for example, all of us know the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, how that is mandated, and the country is mandated to report. This year, India is going to report on the, similarly, CERD is there, CEDAW is there. So any convention that the country is, and this is the only block or only body that is driven by membership of countries who are mandated to take up whatever that they're signed in. So it's worth, if we are engaging globally, to engage with a body like the UN and take our issues there as well, which has been being done since 2001. Anyways, I would like to thank you so much. We have all of you being with us till the end. This wouldn't have been possible with the GFoD and the Inclusivity Project team. So I'd like to thank Vinay, Simona, Queen, Shalini, Pranjali and Naveen, who have actually put this together. Naveen put this together, and Pranjali has taken care of all the putting it up on social media and all the background work that has gone. So thanks, Pranjali. Thank you so much, Naveen, for putting this together. And thank you for all of you. I don't know if I've missed any. Yeah, Johannes is here, and Dinesh also should be somewhere. But thanks to all of you. I think without your support and putting this together, it wouldn't have happened. But I would like to encourage all of you in this to engage and dialogue with us on this, to keep this dialogue continuing. This should not be the end of this dialogue. Please reach out to the teams here. Please reach out to us. We are happy to open up these conversations. We are happy to take forward some of this together, because this is not just the GFoD or TIP, but this is as a collective. We are doing it as a community, how we want to take it forward. I think it's extremely important that we keep this dialogue together. जो इंडिया में है, मुझे आशा है कि जो भी बोला गया है उसका कैसे हम आगे लेकर जा रहे हैं इस मुद्दे को यूएन लेवल पे, अंतरराष्ट्रीय लेवल पे, आपको समझ में आए होंगे। लेकिन अगर और ज़्यादा जानकारी चाहिए तो ये टीम है यहाँ पे जो आपको इस डायलॉग को आगे लेकर, इस चर्चा को आगे लेकर जाएगा। चाय पर चर्चा कर सकते, कुछ और पे चर्चा कर सकते, लेकिन इस चर्चा को आगे लेकर जाना हमें, क्योंकि वो बहुत ही एक महत्वपूर्ण मुद्दा है। क्योंकि जो काम NCDHR 2001 में डर्बन कॉन्फ्रेंस में पहले बार जब इस मुद्दे को अंतर्राष्ट्रीय स्तर पे लेकर जाके अब तक वो जो काम जारी है, उस काम को हम कैसे हमारे समुदाय के साथ और बाकी जो हमारे जैसे जो समुदाय है अंतर्राष्ट्रीय स्तर पर उनके साथ मिलके हम कैसे इस कन्वेंशन के और बढ़ रहे हैं, उसके लिए आपके सहायता चाहिए, आपका सहयोग चाहिए और आपका सपोर्ट हमेशा हमारे साथ रहना चाहिए. Jai Bhim. Before we close, Pranjali has very strictly ordered me that we have to take a picture. So can we all open our videos, please? Otherwise, later I'll have to hear from Pranjali. So for Pranjali's sake, please, can we open the videos? Thank you so much. And I'd like to acknowledge there are many leaders here. I have not had time to acknowledge, but ADRF leaders are here. I don't want to go into names, but academics are here, several leaders from the community, many from India. I'd like to thank you. I'm not going to take names because I might miss names and then it'll go bad. So Pranjali, over to you.
Thank you so much, Beena.
Thank you all. Keep the conversation going. Jai Bhim.
Jai Bhim, Paul, Jai Bhim, Beena. Thank you, Queen.
There is a slogan which all of us give. It is a slogan which invites the different cultural context where Dalit-like communities like Roma, like CDWD in Africa have given. It's called Opera Roma, which is asserting the rights of and dignity of Roma. And Jai Bhim, of course, we all know, which is, hail the power of Ambedkarism. Then there is Lenthai, which is the Burakumin struggle, where they say power to the people, especially of these Buraku. Then there is Salve, which is primarily from the Latin American slogan, and also Uhuru, which is what Queen was saying from Africa, which means freedom. So Jai Bhim, Opera Roma, Lenthai, and Uhuru and Salve.
So Paul, you can say it and we'll repeat it.
But you're all muted, no?
No, I think
we'll unmute.
Okay. Jai Bhim.
Jai
Bhim.
Jai Bhim.
Lenthai.
Lenthai.
Opera Roma.
Opera Roma.
Salve.
Salve.
Uhuru. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you all. Jai Bhim.
Fadlallah Peter. Thank you, Paul. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay.
It was supposed to be an in-person meeting, but because of Queen and others, we could not really have it earlier, and people wanted. So, yes. Thank you for all who.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Vimalji, thank you.
Thank you, Paul. I joined very late.
Thank you so much.
I saw.
Yeah, I joined very late, but I heard your whole speech.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. Beena, you have not taken my question. Beena?
Oh, I think she has left. What is that?
My question was for you. How long we should wait for the response from the UN Council, UN Human Council on the issue of caste
I don't think
discrimination.
we should wait for them. We should continue our efforts and really push these efforts at the national level. I think they are very, very more important. And just to give legitimacy, we continue to fight till they. I have a feeling it is going to come at least in the next 3 to 5 years. I'm sure of it, because already some of these. How powerful or diluted it will be, but definitely UN will take cognizance of it.
Because since 2001, we are raising this issue continuously on all the platform available of UN platform, and I don't see any result in the sense positive response from the UN Council. How long we should wait?
No, what is happening, Vimalji, is in many of these interventions, there is more and more support for it. Like, for example, even in Human Rights Council, there is a decision for the Office of the High Commission to have a focus group to work on this in the in the Office of the High Commission, which is the key secretariat for the Human Rights Council. Now, they would not have taken this if not for the several attempts that you have all taken. So that is one. Then second, they've started to work on the second edition of guidelines for all UN personnel as well as for country teams of UN of how to identify these systems and how to address these systems with bringing in the existing things. Then in the General Council, in both Commission on Status of Women, there is a special briefing note that UN Women has brought out. Of course, with all here, Simona is here, Beena is here, and Queen, three of them, and several others. They are bringing this to say that within the racial minorities, CDWD communities require a specific address, and this will be released in 2 weeks from now.
Paul,
So that
Paul, just one information for the interpretation. We have closed the meeting, Safia, so you can quit. We don't want to take your extra time. Just wanted to inform you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So
okay, Paul, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Because Naveen doesn't want to give more time. But
No, Vimalji, I was
but this information should be circulate among the group, the entire group. Not only Indian, it's a global group. So everyone can be ready for the coming event.
Yes, true.
Yes.
I think that's this is one such effort, and like Simona is doing it in Europe, Queen is doing it in Africa, and other country colleagues are doing it in Latin America. But I think we need to do more of this, definitely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay.
Check Siddhati. Bonjour.
Bonjour.
He's a warrior in Mauritania.
Really?
Yeah. He's a warrior against caste system. Yeah.
Vimalji, I was saying that we have to request the interpretation to end. The conversation may go on still, so we are free to discuss.
Yeah. So I think we will also leave. Thank you, Queen. Thank you, Simona, also. And thank you, Pranjali, Naveen, Vinay, for putting in a lot of effort in making this happen. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Bye.